Thank you all for gathering here today. Here lies, let's just call him Johnny. He was born and raised in a small town in Connecticut. He enjoyed Taco Tuesday and going to baseball games in his hometown. His biggest personal achievement was getting 20 likes on a comment. He also enjoyed other hobbies like sports betting and scrolling on TikTok. Turns out he clocked in over 9 years just on that app, just swiping. Anyways, he never actually left a 50-mile radius of his hometown and never got to see Paris like he always wanted to. The book he's been working on for the past 37 years is only 5 pages done, and another word would never be added to it. He also always wanted to open up his own brewery, but, that dream died long before he did. Yeah, he lived 62 years, but really died at 25. He went through his entire life in silent fear and crippling self-doubt, never experiencing what his life could have been if he just didn't stop himself. He always put off his dreams for tomorrow, forgetting that he won't always have a tomorrow. I wonder what he thinks now. I wonder what he would do if he had one more try, one more day. I wonder if before going into the ground, he knew his biggest fear was about to come true. Not spiders, not heights, not even death itself, but the final realization that his entire life was nothing. But mediocre is one of those words that means something a little different depending on who you ask. The actual definition of mediocre is of only moderate quality, which is average, right in the middle, center of the bell curve. Like not good, not bad, just meh. Which on its own doesn't sound terrible because all it really means is normal. But how would you feel if someone rated your entire life 5 out of 10? Like just imagine if the best word someone could use to explain your entire existence was mid. If that happened, we would feel as if our life was wasted, at least a little bit. Something about that just feels inherently wrong and empty. Nobody wants to be called mediocre. Even if you were to go around and ask random people, do you want to live a mediocre life? They would immediately say no. Probably hell no. And this fear of living a mediocre, mundane, ordinary, average, doesn't matter what word you want to use, life is the strongest it's ever been and is getting worse. And a lot of us will spend our entire lives trying to get over this fear, but still feel as if we haven't made any progress. We'll take 2 steps forward, but then a goalpost will jump another mile. We'll use up the little time we have trying to break above this line, trying to earn the fact that our lives amounted to something more than just mediocrity. But why? What's wrong with being average? What's the problem with living a simple, normal life? Well, technically there isn't. On its own, there's nothing inherently wrong with living a normal, average life. It's not like if you or someone else lives a mediocre life, you did something wrong and it should have went a different way. By definition, most people throughout all time have lived normal lives, and most of us here come from average people living average lives. We need average people to keep the world running, and without average people, nothing would work. And no matter where, what time period you go to, by definition, there have to be average people. But being average can change drastically based off of a million different variables, because saying someone lives an average or a mediocre life necessitates comparison. For example, if you're the only person alive, you just live the best life ever because you're the only life. If you're 1 out of 2 people, then you're either living the best life or the worst life. And then depending on what you're comparing, different people can be mediocre in different ways. Like you can be top 10 in one specific area of life, but then bottom 10 in other areas. Same thing when comparing win. For example, what people call average today is a significantly better average than in the not too distant past. And probably 100 generations from now, average is going to be better than the lives of millionaires today, because that's just what happens as the quality of life goes up over time. Then also, depending on where you are, even today, average can mean something completely different again. If you're in America or another first world country and you're just average, your average is a lot different than other people's average globally. Worldwide, the median household income is around $10,000 a year. The median human on this planet still doesn't have AC. Billions of people still don't have access to consistent clean water. 25,000 human beings die of just hunger every day, with 10,000 of them being children. That's an average of 1 human dying every 3.5 seconds, meaning as you've been watching this video, this many people have died just of hunger. And this isn't a go trip or anything, but it sometimes helps me to zoom out and look at my life objectively instead of through the very narrow lens that we tend to do a lot. Anyways, I say all this because we need to have a baseline, because without going too deep into semantics, because we can do that forever, right now, whenever I'm talking about average or mediocrity, I'm talking about modern first world country idea of mediocre, as this is my experience and what I assume most people watching this video also use as a baseline. And while I do think it's good to appreciate what you have, I still do not think that living a mediocre life is something we should automatically accept and strive towards. Okay, but why is being mediocre so scary? And why is it something we actively try to fight to avoid being? Well, first we can start with the scientific biological reason that we fear being mediocre because it's encoded into our genes. At the end of the day, every cell in your body just wants to survive long enough to survive and thrive. And a huge part of your survival has always been other people, because we need others to help us survive. No one can survive long enough solely by themselves, especially in the past. And that's a huge part of what makes humans human. Our ability and desire to connect, communicate, and collaborate with others. And this giant web of people interacting is called society. And naturally, a part of society is status. But status brings competition and the desire to stand out and be valuable to others so others can help you out and vice versa. Because if you're not useful to others, or other people don't like you or want to help you, the chances of you surviving will go down significantly. So encoded inside your genes, throughout thousands of generations from people in the past, you would naturally develop this fear of being mediocre, or more specifically low status. So you would take more action to try to move towards the top and become higher status and break out of this mediocre middle ground. Because we all know that even today, we get disproportionate returns depending on where you land on the social hierarchy. If you're at the bottom, you get basically nothing. If you're in the middle, you get some rewards, but not too much. Usually just barely enough to survive and stay sane. If you're higher, you get quite a bit more. But if you're number one, you get basically everything. Just think about today in almost any single area or category. If you're number one, you don't just get some more rewards than other people below you, but you might literally get 10,000 times more reward. Like, you get outsized returns the higher you get, drastically increasing your chances of survival and thriving. Like, think about kings in the past or people in power today. They can't literally do anything, but damn there, the entire world is at their disposal. But now think about someone at the very bottom. Their options for survival and thriving are extremely limited, and they don't have much control over their lives. They have little to no freedom or autonomy to maximize their life. And the people in the middle are just given basically barely enough to survive just to exist and keep going. Now, this can lead to other problems that are going to be talked about in this video, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, it's just simply what happens. And of course, not everyone can be number one, but you're still programmed to at least try, or to find a little area or a pocket to become known, heard, seen, or better than others in something, so you can stand out and live a better life. Because every cell in your body knows there is no advantage in striving to live an average life. Basically, almost everything you do, in some way, shape, or form, is heavily tied or directly influenced by other people around you. If other people didn't exist, your actions would change overnight. And this constant comparison we make between ourselves and others puts pressure on us to perform and stand out. Now, this on its own isn't really a problem. Like, sure, it's annoying, but your brain is really just trying to make sure that you're useful to others around you, which isn't really a bad thing at all. It's better to try to be useful than being comfortable being useless. But the problem now is that the fear is bigger than it's ever been. There's something that's happened in the past few decades that's added gasoline to the fire. Something that's put us on this never-ending treadmill to achieve and have more, making the fear of being mediocre explode recently. What is the main contributor and cause of all of this? Like, why is this happening? You guessed it, the internet and social media. Now, the internet is amazing. Arguably top 5 inventions ever. Hell, you're on it right now, and you probably will be for a quarter of your existence. And it comes with a long list of pros and cons. For pros, it allows us to be connected to every single thing all the time, which is fucking amazing. Like, when it comes to learning and seeing and listening, like, just the fact you have all the world's knowledge to build off of in your pocket is something truly special. But the massive downside is that nobody uses it for that at all. Most people just use it to waste time and rot their brains and comparing themselves to people they'll never see with their own eyes through a big part of the internet that is social media. And as you probably know, most of social media is algorithm based now. Like, I would imagine you probably didn't search for this video. It was shown to you, you clicked on it, and now you're watching it. Hello. And the algorithm tries to get the most amount of people to watch for the longest amount of time, so they can be shown the most amount of ads to make the most amount of money. But the way you get people to watch something is by first getting them interested enough to watch. And people only watch one thing over another if one thing is bigger, better, or more exciting than the other thing. So naturally, this causes the biggest, best, most fantastical stuff to be pushed to the top all the time, creating almost like an arms race for people's attention through stimulation. And a huge part of this stimulation is triggering emotions. And these trillion-dollar companies obviously aren't dumb, and they know this. So they put content in front of us that spark emotions. And some of the strongest emotions are envy and jealousy, which naturally comes from comparison, which, as we just talked about, is baked into all of us. They know that if they show someone living a better life than you, even if it's fake, it's going to spark something inside your brain and actually keep you on the apps longer. And you consciously might know that most of the stuff you see online isn't real and most of it's fake, but your brain that's been living in nature for thousands of generations can't tell the difference between pixels and real life because pixels are very new. So whenever it sees the pixels, it can't help but compare itself to those fake pixels, which, if you haven't noticed, can lead to a lot of problems. Today, in any area of your life that you think you've done decent in, you can find 1,000 people who've done 1,000 times more than you and half the time in just that one area. You can see people in their 20s making millions of dollars per month. You can see the most beautiful people on the planet all the time. You can see people born in the same month as you, traveling the world, starting families, impacting people, creating art, living a life that looks like a literal dream. Like, there are so many people we can see today that are so far beyond mediocrity in almost every single aspect of our lives. Now, again, I think this is truly amazing to a certain extent, because first knowing that something is possible is the first step to making that a reality. And not every single thing we see on social media is fake people living fake lives. Like, some people actually do really live like this. And the fact that we can see so many different possibilities and variations of way life can be lived is something that no other human has ever been able to witness. It opens up so much potential and inspires people to do something different because they know that other humans with the same two arms and same two legs as them have been able to do something truly spectacular. And I'm not just talking about money or looking good for pictures, but in almost any single domain of life, we can see people achieve true excellence. And if people use it correctly, it can be the first spark to helping somebody truly change their life. But what happens when trying to become the big fish in a small pond becomes trying to become that same fish in the ocean? Well, now the comparison is not just 30 people, but the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of people who basically exist in a different reality, when you can literally track the net worth of the richest people in history in real time, who make more money in a week than your entire bloodline combined, where there's someone always richer, happier, taller, stronger, more successful than you, when you know that no matter how hard you try, you can't even become close to becoming number one in all areas of your life, when whenever you achieve one thing, there's 100 more things that pop up for you to do. What happens whenever you're trying to stop and relax, but you know in the back of your mind, there's someone, somewhere, doing something that's getting ahead and is striving to take the things that you want? Well, what happens is the crippling fear that you're living a mediocre life. This is probably the biggest reason why people today fear being average more than people in the past. Because it's not that the fear itself is different. It's just that someone who might have been number one or even top 100 before becomes irrelevant today because our standard is so much higher, making the fear bigger. This is where I think a lot of people feel sadness and depression and dissatisfaction in their lives, even whenever they're trying to do something different and they're making progress towards what they want to do. Because in their minds, the gap between where they are and where they want to be becomes so wide, their brain knows they can never truly cross it. And they'll always be dissatisfied even if they are making a lot of progress and are tangibly comfortable in their lives. Because your brain doesn't care about how far you've come. It just cares about how close you are in relation to your goal. And since your brain controls a lot of your emotions, from its perspective, being mediocre and not standing out is a threat to your survival and your quality of life. So it just keeps building this fear within you because it is always trying to become number one, even though it is literally impossible. But so what? Like, sure, our brain fears being mediocre, and social media and the modern world makes all this worse, but a lot of us understand that this is all just an illusion and most of it really is just mental. Like, it's not like you'll die for being mediocre today. Hell, like, most people who are mediocre today will still live longer, more comfortable, more luxurious lives than anyone who came before them by a large margin. Because I think even most of us understand that it's a losing game trying to compare ourselves to everyone across all domains. Even if we are trying to win this fake game, it has little to no impact on our daily tangible existence past the point. So the fear of mediocrity is deeper than just comparison between people on social media or living a comfortable life, because we understand the illusion and we're not dying, but the fear is still there. So I think this is where we need to break out of the biological, scientific, societal reasons and really hit the core reason of why we fear living a mediocre life. Let's take a sharp right turn, and I promise it'll come back around to something in a second. If you sit alone with yourself and have a good long think about your life, soon you're going to reach the idea of death, that one day you simply won't be here. Naturally, this scares people, so people try to fight it. People start families, maybe turn to religion to try to escape death. Some build companies, some start projects. Some try to write their name in a small corner of the history books, maybe try to become rich and famous. Some people try to create something so big, something so personal, hoping they can try to escape death. Because The last thing any human wants to grapple with is the idea that their entire life was meaningless. This is where the fear of being mediocre comes from when you get down to it. Meaning and purpose, being forgettable, the fear of just surviving but never truly living to see what life has to offer. And of course, if someone doesn't have the opportunity or the choice to dictate how their life will go, then that's different and that's fair. If you have to do what you have to do to take care of yourself and your family, that's respectable. You have to survive first. But mediocrity is whenever you have the shot but don't even attempt. When you have the leverage and a chance given to you to build a life that you want to by generations of sacrifice, and you still pick the road you don't even care about because it's safe and you just make excuses for it. When you have the opportunity and still choose comfortable numbness over what you truly want. Because even if you're living a mediocre life is comfortable and tolerable, no amount of comfort can ever fill the void of meaninglessness that comes from being mediocre. Now, a mediocre life is not a life that's inherently meaningless, but meaningless from the perspective of the individual living it. A life lacking personal purpose, direction, a mission other than just living to the next day to live long enough to make it to the next day. And for a lot of people, that's enough. Like just pure survival and making it to the next day. And for most of our past, that was literally the sole purpose of life. If you were to go back in time, like people didn't really have a choice on what to do with their lives. And even a lot of people alive today, unfortunately. But if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume you're fortunate enough to have that survival box checked off, meaning you probably want more meaning outside of just survival. And if you don't find survival or something to strive towards and you're just existing, you are probably going to feel a bit empty because that meaning slot is now left open again. Now, meaning and purpose is a weird thing because it's just a word that humans made up and can mean different things to different people, like mediocrity, which is why whenever I think about a life that has no meaning, it has to come from the individual's perspective, because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. It's living a life that one truly cares about. Whenever they're alone with themselves and nobody's watching, are they proud of their existence? Because like if someone wants to become a farmer and have a bunch of land and they go out and do that, that's fine. If somebody wants to live a simple life, provide, have a family, and travel to Paris once a year, and they do that, that's fine. If someone wants to become a high school teacher because they always wanted to teach the next generation, then good. I wouldn't call them mediocre because from their standard, which is what matters to them, they're living true to them. But if someone lives their entire life never expressing themselves or even attempting to do the things they actually care about, especially when they had the opportunity to do so, that's a bit of a waste. I would call that mediocre. I would even call someone mediocre, even if they're high status or they're famous or they're successful in one area of life, but they don't actually care about it. Because at the end of their life, which will come, if they look back on it and didn't even truly care about it, then what was the point? So whenever we say we fear being mediocre, that's what we fear. Not living a comfortable life, but a life lacking true meaning and purpose. And most people today are mediocre. Most people today will accept the life given to them and not even ask themselves for 2 seconds what they actually want from their life, what they want their lives to mean to them, and what they want to experience before it's all over. A lot of people have that option now, but still don't do anything with it. Just accept a life of stagnation and running on a never-ending treadmill they don't even care about, which is arguably worse now because we have more choices than ever to decide how our life can go, and most people still do nothing with it. Also, you can't really blame most people for being mediocre because the whole system is set up for people to be mediocre. Like, not in some like conspiracy theory kind of way, but we don't really reward people for trying to do anything different with their lives. If anything, we reward the opposite. Like, sure, like we say we try to encourage people to try to do something different, but the second anyone actually tries to, there's not much support and it becomes isolating really fast. Whenever we were young, we're taught that we should chase our dreams and that anything is possible. It's good to be different. It's good to try. It's good to take risks. It's good to be yourself and try to separate yourself from the crowd. But slowly as you start to get older, especially as young adults and beyond, this starts to get beat out of us. You start getting criticized for wanting to do more. If somebody's interested in a certain niche or just a certain thing that most people aren't into, they're isolated from the group and are seen as weird. If somebody questions everything and starts asking those questions, they are discouraged and seen as a smartass. If somebody has a different solution to solving a math problem, they're told that they should show their work and are taught the right way to do it. It's not encouraged to actually be different. But then when people reach their late 20s and their early 30s, maybe even their 40s, they have their midlife crisis and they realize they haven't been living a life they truly wanted to. And now the ship has sailed because they have too many things weighing them down that stop them from building a life they truly want to. And even if they did somehow find the courage and the time and the energy to start working towards their true desires, by the time they finally start to make it work, they only have a small fraction of their life to live and actually enjoy it. Now, I'm not going to be overly dramatic and say there's zero encouragement at all and everybody's just anti-trying. Like, of course, there are people who walk this earth who try to encourage people on their journey without judgment because they understand what it was like in the beginning. But overall, it is definitely more heavily skewed towards inaction, comfort, reliability over actual meaning and purpose. Like, I don't know exactly what to call this, but it's almost like the age of not trying. I know for a lot of Gen Z or younger people, it's seen almost as cringy or weird to actually try something. Like, if somebody actually tries to do something different, it is seen as cringe or corny to almost everyone around them. Like, to see somebody, like, if somebody wants to start posting content, it's seen as weird. If somebody wants to start learning the piano and they get obsessed with the piano, it's seen as weird. Like, if somebody tries to create art or tries to do something a little bit different outside of everybody else around them, they're not encouraged to do so. It's sad because most people really don't need that much encouragement. Most of the time, they really only need one or two people to really believe in them to try to do something different. And most people don't even have that. Like, and not fake encouragement at the very beginning, but like full encouragement throughout the entire process. It's almost like a marathon. Like, most people get support in the very beginning, maybe, and at the very end, but it's incredibly lonely in the middle part, the part that actually matters and is the hardest. Most of the time, 95% of the encouragement during the long process of doing something different comes from the individual themselves. Sure, having that self-discipline and motivation is needed, but it is truly invaluable to have somebody by your side who believes in you more than yourself. And very few get that. Outside of that, almost everything in the modern world is designed for us to waste time and put our energy towards bullshit. We all know that we naturally take the path of least resistance. If we have an easy path versus a hard path, we will always take the easy path unless the hard path has a huge reward at the end. And now, since most of us, well, not most of us, all of us now live in the modern world, we see it firsthand just how comfortable the world is now, especially when we compare it to the rest of history. The modern world is basically set up for us to be mediocre. The modern world gives us the ability to be constantly stimulated and get anything we want and need faster than at any point in history. At all times, we have devices in our hands that can cure boredom by supplying us with infinite entertainment. And because sitting down and thinking is unstimulating and uncomfortable, and the option to escape is always there in our pockets, most people just default to being constantly stimulated. They will just constantly distract themselves and never even begin the journey of breaking out of mediocrity. If we put the screen in our pockets and we look up, we have 10 more screens on the wall. We have screens on our wrists, screens in the car. Even some refrigerators have screens now. And then if you avoid the screens, you're still surrounded by leeches just here to drain our energy, time, and focus. There's unlimited, constantly updated foods around us. Always something new to buy and consume. Always some new drama or some news, and just on and on and on and on. And this is really cool. Like, having all this stuff around us is amazing, and I would definitely rather have it than to not have it. But the biggest downside is that if you're not careful, it can lead to years of wasted time. Just think about from age 10, when you gain consciousness, to age 25. How much of that decade and a half was spent alone, actually thinking and planning for your future in deep thought? Probably not much, even though your choices during that time have the highest volatility of where your life will end up. Just actually really think about this. How many hours of your life have passed focused on shit you don't care about and can't even remember anymore? Most people will spend hour after hour, day after day, year after year, swiping, scrolling, comparing, consuming, taking everything in from the world. And then they get bored 10 seconds into looking within themselves and thinking about their own life. And then they get shocked when a decade passes and they aren't where they want to be. We know that where your attention goes, it grows. So if you never spend time putting attention onto your life, how can you expect it to grow? It's just sad to me whenever I realize that almost everyone had a dream or something they wanted to do, and almost everyone never achieves that dream. Like, it's weird to think about that at some point, literally every single adult was once a kid and had something they wanted to do. It doesn't matter if it was big or small or smart or stupid. There was something genuinely there, but it never happened. Like, at some point, that dream had to fade. Like, I wonder how many kids today, right now, want to do X, Y, or Z and will never get anywhere close to that. And not just because they don't have the opportunity, because I know some of them don't, but how many of them will never achieve that thing because they chose comfort and distractions instead. And with all this new technology and advancements in AI, I wonder if they're going to have any motivation to do anything at all. Like, of course, not everyone can simply just do whatever they want to and get everything instantly. But just the fact there are so many dreams that get taken to the graveyard makes me wonder what they would do if they had a redo. If they understood what they knew right before going into the ground, what actions they would take differently if they just had one more go at life. Like, would they still waste time? Would they still be afraid to take a risk? Would they still be comparing themselves to people on the internet? Would they still put comfort above the things they actually wanted to do? Usually doing something different with your life requires a hit to stability and comfort because you're doing something by definition outside the norm. And if the norm is stable and comfortable, trying to become abnormal is going to be the opposite. And again, I completely get why people just want to chill and be comfortable and live a nice, simple life. But damn, like, you only get to exist once. At the end of the day, you die anyway, so why not give it a go? Don't be stupid, of course, and dump your entire life savings into crypto and expect to become a millionaire in a week and try to do all these crazy shit. But like, why not try? I would get it more if it was 1474 BCE and you were born to a family that had to get up and work for the king against your will at 12 years old, working 80 hours a week, whatever. But you're here using magic daily. You're here with the most powerful tools in your hands ever. You're here with more potential to do anything. So like, why settle for just being mediocre? Quick rant before I talk about how to not be mediocre. No matter how hard we try to justify it, we all know it just sucks being mediocre. Remember, not living an above average life, not making $100,000 per year from home with paid vacations, etc. We're talking right in the middle. Because I've heard people say that being mediocre is okay, but usually when they describe a mediocre life, they're describing a far above mediocre life. Because I was going on social media one day, I'm assuming, and I came across this post that was like, not poor, not rich, but in the middle. But the pictures they were using for middle was so far above average, even though the first world country, it made me realize that when people say, I want to live a mediocre average life, they don't even know what they're talking about. If someone says they want a mediocre life and they start describing having a good paying job and traveling the world a couple of times a year, having a healthy marriage, a family, a nice body, a 2-story house, etc., you are already very outside of mediocrity. If you look at the stats of mediocrity, you need to look at the median. Median simply gives you a better understanding than average because average can be skewed heavily based off of outliers. So before you accept a mediocre life, you need to remove this idea of this perfect dream life full of freedom and abundance because that is simply not mediocre. In America, average means you're making around $45,000 per year. You don't have enough money to cover a $1,000 emergency. You watch hours of TV every day, and you probably spend 4 hours per day on your phone doing absolutely nothing. You barely read, you're overweight, and you're probably lonely. But worst of all, a very good chance you're unfulfilled. Very, very good chance you don't know what you're doing with your life, and you're spending your one life building someone else's life, or trying to impress people who aren't even worth impressing. Very good chance you only get temporary motivation spikes towards the things you actually want to do, which is just Googling it for 4 minutes once a month and then just stopping. We're not talking about somebody chasing their dreams, or finding purpose and making impact in the world, or making an exact plan for their life and then executing it as well as they can. That's not what mediocre people are doing. Mediocre is living a life one doesn't care about in place for comfort. It's a life you don't want to hit redo on. And we could sit here try to come up with all these different analogies and excuses, but we all know that being mediocre, it's ass. Like, very rarely in history have mediocre people had this free, happy, comfortable life full of purpose and adventure. They were just there. For most of history, a mediocre life was a grind to survive, just doing things they don't want to do to barely get by. And today might be a little bit better, but like it's still not good. And there's a lot of people who try to come up with justifications of being mediocre, saying it's okay to just be average. It's okay to just be where you are, saying it's stressful and unrealistic to achieve all these different things. Like, which is true to a point. I do think you should be present and appreciate your existence. But usually they leave out the part of figuring out your own path and rules for your life. How important it is to try to live a life you actually care about. To spend a good chunk of time questioning your existence and how you want your life to look. And how you can get the most out of it with the cards given to you. Sure, you don't need to be a famous actor if you don't want to. But you should at least know what you want your life to mean to you and try to make progress. Because sometimes it doesn't even matter about achieving the goal. Like, yes, of course, that's important. But the feeling of being proud of your most recent efforts, even if it's in a small way, is a beautiful feeling. To know that even if an asteroid were to hit the Earth right now, sure, you'd be bummed out, but at least you did. Again, not saying anything's inherently good or bad, just is what it is. In conclusion, the fear of being mediocre comes from the fear of living a meaningless, purposeless, unfree life. It's being in the monotonous loop of waking up, going through the motions, and just doing barely enough to stay above water. Not having enough time or energy to put towards your true aspirations. You forget your own dreams and spend your one time alive building someone else's dream. Constantly distracting yourself and just drowning in this ocean of distractions and bullshit. Constantly putting off the things you want to do for tomorrow until half your life is gone and you realize you're nowhere where you want to be. You fear that you'll end up feeling the pain. Not that you didn't make it to the end of the road, but the pain that you didn't even start walking down the path. It's the fear of wanting to watch the final flash of your life with your eyes closed. And that's terrifying. So how do you go about facing this fear? How does one break out of mediocrity, or how to solve this fear altogether? Well, there is no simple 3-step process, but here's what's helped me and how to live a non-mediocre life in my opinion. So step 1 is to dismantle the idea of mediocrity. Try to understand that mediocrity is just a word that people made up, and at the end of the day, it really doesn't mean anything. And also understand that you will be mediocre in some areas of your life in some way, shape, or form. Like, it's basically impossible to be the best in every single category because the categories are constantly changing, they don't even exist, and even if you are the best, the next question becomes, for how long? And if you spend your entire life trying to be better or to stand out from the crowd after all these different abstract categories we humans make up, then it's a losing battle to the day you die, and it probably isn't even a game you want to play anyways. And then also realize that even if you do technically live an average life, which you probably do, it is still better than 99% of people who came before us, and it should still be appreciated. You're living in the best time in history thus far. You've been given access to the most complicated tool in the whole universe that is your brain for a limited amount of time. Like, just for 1 second, think about how weird it is that you're a thing that exists and you know that you're a thing. You only get that ability for a short period of time, and that awareness that you are aware will one day be gone. So while you have it, appreciate it. Because in a real sense, that's literally all you have. This whole video is basically just a cherry on top to life. Because you're only going to have this life this one time. And if you are only going to live this one time, then why not try to get the most out of it? Like what else do you have better to do? Anyways, back to what I was saying. And then once you understand that about mediocrity, realize that what you really want is meaning and purpose in your life. More specifically, personal meaning and purpose, as in finding something worth suffering for that you truly care about. Because if you can truly find purpose in your life won't be mediocre, or at least to you, because you truly lived true to yourself, which is all that really matters at the end. Now, how do you find meaning or purpose in your life? Well, that's tough, because meaning is something that doesn't have a one-size-fits-all answer. No one can just come up to you and tell you exactly what to do with your life and the purpose of your existence. And arguably, there doesn't seem to be a universal purpose to anything. The more we learn about the world and the universe we live in, we just become smaller and more insignificant. And more than likely, there is no ultimate meaning to life. We're just here for a period of time on this small dot and die forever. Which is dark, yeah, but it's also a bit freeing. If at the end nothing truly matters, then you can't really fail at existence. Like, there is no wrong way to live. It means you can decide your own meaning, how you want to live your life, and it's just as right as everyone else's. And comparing your score of life to someone else's doesn't matter, because at the end, the scoreboard is going to be erased and it didn't even exist to begin with. So you might as well just create your own rules for your life, especially if you have the opportunity to do so. This is within reason, of course. Like, it doesn't mean that you can just remove all responsibility and start breaking laws or anything crazy like that. Like, don't start living like the Joker and start creating chaos just to create chaos. It just means that the pen to write your story is in your hands. Okay, cool. But what does all this mean for right now, this second? Well, you are a human being, obviously, and you are a problem-solving machine. And your brain is constantly looking for a problem to solve or have something to work towards. And it becomes extremely unhappy whenever there's nothing to work on or the thing it's working on feels useless. And you can give your brain a never-ending low dose of stimulation to keep it calm and mushy. But I would assume if you got to the end of your life and saw nothing but bullshit static, you wouldn't like that very much. So instead, you need to find a problem worth solving. So whenever you inevitably have to suffer or deal with things you don't want to during the long climb of life, you can still find purpose and fulfillment in the journey itself. This is step 0 that most people never do, because it requires you sitting down, actually putting down your phone, and having a good long think about your life, to ask yourself how you see yourself and how you want your life to look outside of just the opinions of others. What interests you have, what things you can't stop thinking about, what would be a cool story to tell whenever you get older. What do you want from your one chance at existence? What goal can you set for yourself that just the progression towards that goal is worthwhile to you? What mountain can you climb that even if you don't reach the summit, you can find joy in making progress towards the summit? What is that thing? It doesn't mean your purpose can involve other people and you got to make your life purely ego driven. Just make sure you actually give a damn about your life outside of only others' opinion on it. And it doesn't need to be something crazy like being an astronaut, which is really cool, no problems with that at all, or something that only sounds cool on paper. It can be simple, it can be massive, it can be mundane as hell. It doesn't matter. Just pick something. Even if you don't know exactly 100% what you want to do, that's fine. Most people never have a 100% clear path. It doesn't need to be a perfectly straight shot, just directionally correct. It can change, and it probably will change several times throughout your life, but you just have to find something you actually care about. Because some direction is better than no direction. Then once you find out what you want to do, just start making progress towards it, even if it's small. Then once you start, keep going until you remember why you started and make your younger self proud. If you find something you care about, not to sound too corny, something that sparks something in your soul, you're already far above average, because most people don't even question anything at all. They just keep living the same day over and over again, never questioning why they do the things they do. But being able to find something worth suffering for is a privilege very few people in history have had a choice to make. But if you have that ability, use that ability. Because one of the things I constantly think about is from the book Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, where the top regret is not living a life true to them. When they started to near the end of their lives and they realized they were just doing things to please others they didn't actually care about, and now they don't have an opportunity or a time to pour towards the things they actually care about. And it makes me think about so many people alive today and the regrets they'll have on their deathbed. How will they feel about the things they're doing today and the lives they're living right now? I know for 100% fact that in the future, the biggest modern regret is going to be all the time spent on the phone, which I think is probably going to be the number one contributor to a lot of people wasting their entire life. Because, bro, if younger people, not even just younger people, but everyone at this point, if everyone just took some time to think about their life, even just 1% of the time they spent on their phone and all the time they spent swiping, and they just put that towards thinking about their life, it could change their entire life. Because I know if at the end, if all this short form content, TikTok, brain rot just keeps getting worse and worse and worse, people are just going to be filled with regret and see nothing but meaningless pixels because they use it to distract themselves to death with it. So I was actually thinking about that. What would 1% of someone's screen time spent thinking actually do? Let's just say someone's screen time is 7 hours a day. 1% of 7 hours is around 4 minutes, a little over 4 minutes. So that would mean that if somebody took all the time they're on their phone and just spent 1% of that per month just thinking, that is 120 minutes, which is roughly 2 hours. And 2 hours doesn't sound like a crazy amount of time, because it's not a crazy amount of time to get stuff done. But imagine if people just spent 2 hours once a month just doing nothing but thinking about their life. Just imagine what that could do. If people started doing that, I do think it would change the entire direction of their life. Because I think a lot of people would realize that they're just doing things they don't want to do just to please people they don't even care about, and just on a path they have no interest in at all. And I'm not saying everybody would be that way, but I do think a lot of people would realize that. Anyways, you only live once. This life is the only life that we know we have, so why die with regrets? Why not see what you can do? Why not maximize everything? Also, too, it doesn't mean go full David Goggins, that all day, every day, nonstop grind. There is something to be said about this constant obsession and never-ending grind of always trying to be number one, always trying to maximize everything. I do think there is a line and a downside of always being on. Sometimes you can get so lost in the pursuit that you forget where you were going to begin with. And it would be a shame to spend your entire life climbing up the mountain and never ever stop every now and then just to look down and appreciate how far you've come. It's probably not best to be in a constant grind of up and up that you miss the journey altogether because your head was down the entire time. Like, not everyone needs to be a 6'5", 27-year-old billionaire just to live a good life. Not everyone needs to retire at 25 and be married with 3 kids. You don't need to wake up at 2 a.m. every morning and run a marathon before your second workout at 6 a.m. Not everyone needs to become an astronaut or a doctor or a Navy SEAL at the same time. You don't have to do that to live a decent life. But now, of course, it is not good to do nothing and coast forever. It is not good to just stay in your comfort zone and sacrifice your dreams for some predictable stimulation. It's typically pretty good to have some big goal or something to work towards and just not completely ignore how others view us and how others judge us. We're humans. We exist in the real world, so that's going to happen. It's also probably not best to abandon every single social construct and go live alone in the woods forever. But I would say it is probably best to be obsessed with a mission rather than just coasting aimlessly. At the end, it just depends on what you value and what you want to see at the end of your life. I'm not religious at all, personally, but I think the closest thing to true hell would be knowing that during your last moments of your life, that your one life wasn't even your life, and now you will die with your dreams. That the kind of life your younger self dreamed of will never come true for the rest of eternity, because instead you walked down the path you didn't question like everyone else around you. You chased comfort and dopamine algorithms like everyone else around you. That you wasted the one time you had to exist, living a life you didn't even care about, not even attempting to see what your life could have been like everyone else around you. Hell is knowing that you wanted to do something and just for whatever reason you didn't. Not because you were born at the wrong time or you didn't have an opportunity or something, but you stopped for no other reason but yourself. Hell is a realization you lived and will die mediocre. And if you sit down and really think about that, that is probably one of the most depressing feelings you can experience. But heaven will be knowing that even if you didn't achieve every single little thing you wanted to do in your life, you still did it your way. You lived with intention, purpose, presence. You actually gave it a shot. Even if you only made it up 1% of your own mountain, it is infinitely better than 100% of someone else's. Even if you didn't reach the summit, you know that you climbed a mountain that you wanted to climb. During your last moments, you'll be filled with memories of effort and progression towards a goal that you set for yourself with the rules you set for your life, which is more than anyone can ask for. You'll be glad you got to exist even for this brief period of time. You know that if your younger self could see the future, they would be proud of who they would become. That during your last moments of existence, before you drift off into nothing, you'll have eternal tears in your eyes, knowing you got the most out of your existence. Knowing that whatever life you lived, the one thing you couldn't call it was mediocre. I think that's probably the perfect way to end a life. Anyways, enough of the poetic stuff. The silver lining to this is that I think it's easier than ever to break out of mediocrity for a lot of reasons, but it's also harder than ever for a few. It's easier than ever because right now, if you're watching this video, it means you have free time, a working brain, and access to unlimited information, which means that you are more equipped than ever to build a life that you want to, more than anyone else who came before you. Because probably the biggest benefit to the internet is the access to information. And information is probably, if not the most important thing in human history. As without information, you can't do shit and you have to go through literally centuries of failures to even just learn a little bit. But not because of the internet and modern times, information has become abundant. For any question you have, you can literally get 10 million different answers from a collective mind of 1 billion humans. Like, there's not really too much that you can't learn just by looking it up these days. Of course, there's certain things like becoming a doctor or doing something crazy. Like, those things take more, like, you can't just learn that off of a Google search. But there's so many little small things that can help you out. You can just learn now, immediately. Even just normal people today probably know more than the smartest people not too long ago. With AI and everything, that might be changing. But anyways, information is abundant. But of course, it's only useful if you actually do something with it. And I really do believe that if somebody is able to use even a little bit of free time that they have with their working brain and with the access they have to the internet, they have nearly unlimited potential and have the choice to escape mediocrity. And also, that doesn't mean that like the only thing that somebody can do has to be tied directly to the internet. It just means that the information that you can learn to do anything you want, any domain, is easier than ever to obtain. It doesn't make success instantaneous, but it is definitely easier for those who use the tools around them. But I think it is also harder because the world is full of distractions and false comparisons that can throw you off track and leave you there forever if you're not careful. And most people fall into this camp because we just want comfort more than anything else. Your brain just wants to run from pain and stay comfortable. And because it's so easy to survive and just stay comfortable now, it's hard to get your brain to do much else other than just the bare minimum. And because it's so hard to break out of that, most people just stay there, even if it's unfulfilling and will lead to regret, which is just mediocrity. Anyways, mediocre, bad. So don't die mediocre. Get the most out of your existence. Use the tools around you to let them use you, etc.